Before we get to the story, take a second to give this video a like and subscribe. Your contribution to the development of the channel is invaluable. Thank you. I arrived in Sen Harbor on a cool, misty morning, the salty air already hinting at the secrets the town held. My name is Laurel, and I had come to this quaint coastal town seeking inspiration and a fresh start, desperate to leave behind the tangled remnants of my past. The town was charming in a weathered, authentic way. Narrow streets, colorful facades, and a pervasive sense that every corner held stories of love, loss, and unspoken truths. After settling into the old rental house that I'd purchased, I began the laborious task of unpacking. Boxes filled with memories and new hopes were strewn across the creaking wooden floors. As I carefully unwrapped an old trunk, my fingers brushed against something that felt entirely out of place amidst my belongings: a faded photograph. The image was of a mysterious woman whose penetrating eyes seemed to look right through me. There was something haunting about her gaze, a mix of sorrow and defiance that stirred an inexplicable sense of unease deep within me. It was as if this stranger from another time was silently warning me that the past was never truly gone. The discovery left me with a lingering chill, one that belied the warmth of the morning sun peeking through the window. I couldn't help but wonder if this was merely a relic of a previous owner's life, or perhaps an omen that my own past, filled with shadows and regret, was destined to catch up with me here. Every creak of the wooden floor and rustle of the ocean breeze outside seemed to whisper hints of bygone eras and unresolved stories. Despite the rush of anxious thoughts, I pressed on with a determined heart. I set the photograph carefully on a shelf in the living room, deciding that its presence was a silent invitation to confront the mysteries it represented. As I arranged my few treasured possessions, I felt the pull of something greater than myself. A deep, unspoken connection to the history of this place and perhaps to my own inner truth. The day unfolded with the mundane rhythm of unpacking and dusting, yet every moment was charged with an underlying intensity. I realized that Sen Harbor was not just a new address, but a crossroads where the past and the present were destined to collide, setting the stage for revelations that would soon alter the course of my life. A gentle knock on the door interrupted my reverie, and I wondered if even the locals sensed the stirring of old secrets. Little did I know, the day was only beginning, and the echoes of the past were already whispering the promise of dramatic, life-altering events to come. Life in Sen Harbor quickly revealed its undercurrents of hidden complexities. Just as I began to settle into a quiet rhythm, the first signs of discord in my personal life began to emerge. Subtle yet unmistakable hints that my marriage was on the verge of unraveling. My husband Andrew, who once embodied a reliable strength in my eyes, had slowly started to slip away into a realm of secrecy and distraction. In the early days after my arrival, Andrew had reassured me that his work would only temporarily keep him away, a necessary sacrifice for a better future. But as days turned into weeks, the distance between us grew palpable. His phone became a fortress, locked away from my curious eyes, and his once animated stories about our shared dreams turned into rushed, half-hearted explanations. One rainy evening, as I returned from a solitary walk along the harbor, I found him sitting in the dimly lit study, his brow creased with worry. "Andrew, what's wrong?" I asked gently, stepping into the room as the sound of the rain tapping on the window echoed our uncertainty. He hesitated, then spoke in a voice that trembled with both exhaustion and a hidden dread. "Lorelei, I've received a letter. Something that doesn't add up. Something that has me unsettled." His eyes flickered, darting away as if afraid to meet mine. It wasn't just fatigue I saw there. There was a shadow of betrayal, or perhaps the fear of being caught in a web of his own making. The letter, he confided, had arrived unexpectedly. A crisp envelope with no return address, its contents laced with warnings that suggested someone from his past was trying to pull him back into old, dangerous habits. "It's like a ghost from a time I thought I had long forgotten," he murmured, his words heavy with implication. I listened in silence, my heart pounding as I realized that this was not the simple, stress-induced confession I had hoped for. Instead, it was an admission of secrets that I had never been privy to. For the first time, I witnessed the stark reality of the widening gulf between us. Andrew's confession, delivered in whispers under the veil of rain, hinted at betrayal, a betrayal that wasn't entirely clear but was undoubtedly real. His remorse mingled with a palpable fear of what might come next. The conversation ended abruptly, leaving us both trapped in an uncomfortable limbo of unspoken accusations and mutual confusion. That night, as I lay awake listening to the rain, I felt the weight of uncertainty settle upon my chest. The photograph I had found earlier now seemed to carry an even deeper significance, as if its mysterious subject were silently witnessing the decay of my once stable life. In that quiet, sleepless moment, I understood that our marriage was crumbling, and the first cracks in its facade had already begun to show. One bright afternoon, as I was sitting on the worn wooden steps of my new veranda, lost in the strokes of my paintbrush on a blank canvas, I sensed a presence that immediately pulled me from my creative trance. I glanced up and caught sight of him. A man with an easy smile and an air of mischief that made him seem both inviting and dangerously unpredictable. His name was Daniel, and in that instant, he exuded a magnetic charm that was impossible to ignore. "Your paints, Laurel, not only reflect light but also seem to attract dark secrets from the past," he said with a playful yet enigmatic tone. His words, delivered with a confident smirk, felt like a challenge, a subtle invitation to explore realms I hadn't dared to tread before. I couldn't help but be intrigued. There was something refreshingly honest in his remark, a truth that resonated with the unspoken tension and secrets that now cluttered my mind since Andrew's confession. At that moment, the boundary between art and life blurred. Daniel's presence ignited a spark, a promise of possibilities that were as exhilarating as they were dangerous. His gaze, steady and intense, met mine in a way that seemed to peel back layers of pretense. "You've got a fire in you, Laurel, one that's willing to risk everything," he continued, his words carrying a hint of both admiration and a warning of the perilous road that lay ahead. I found myself responding not with words, but with a silent nod, a subtle acknowledgement of the shared understanding that something in both of us had been starving for this kind of reckless honesty. While the familiar landscape of Sen Harbor continued its slow, rhythmic dance with the tide, our brief encounter charged the air with a tension that was both invigorating and unsettling. As we talked, I discovered that Daniel was not just an ordinary neighbor. He was a man deeply woven into the fabric of this coastal town's mysteries. His role within a local collective known as the Historians of the Streets hinted at a life filled with hidden histories and unspoken confessions. Every word he spoke seemed to unveil layers of intrigue, promising that the darkness lurking beneath the town's picturesque exterior was far richer and more complex than I had ever imagined. That day, the conversation flowed naturally, each sentence a step closer to an uncharted territory of emotion and desire. The spark he ignited wasn't merely a fleeting attraction. It was the beginning of a dangerous game, where the thrill of the unknown could either lead to liberation or irrevocable betrayal. I left that encounter with my heart pounding and my mind swirling with thoughts of what this newfound connection might mean. Little did I know, that spark would soon set the stage for a series of choices that would alter the course of my life forever. The days that followed my chance encounter with Daniel felt like stepping into an entirely new world, one that was both alluring and perilously dark. Daniel had slowly pulled me into the inner circles of Sen Harbor's undercurrent, a network of people bound together by their own tangled histories and clandestine confessions. One cool evening, he invited me to an event that promised to peel back the polished veneer of our coastal haven. I arrived at an abandoned theater on the edge of town, a crumbling relic that somehow radiated a magnetic charm. Within its dimly lit halls, a motley group of locals gathered under the banner of the Historians of the Streets. Their discussions, punctuated by bursts of laughter and sighs heavy with regret, delved deep into the town's past. Long-forgotten romances, bitter betrayals, and the hidden truths that had scarred many lives. It was a raw, unfiltered space where the hypocrisy of societal norms was laid bare. As we sat around a rough-hewn wooden table, sipping strong, unadulterated wine, one of the members, an older man with sorrow etched on his face, recounted the story of a love affair that had torn a family apart decades ago. His voice trembled with both anger and nostalgia. "Every couple here," he said, glancing around as if challenging us to deny his words, "has a secret that stains them. And it's not just about forbidden love, it's about the double standards that let the mighty play with hearts while leaving the rest of us to pick up the pieces." His statement hung in the air, charged with an emotion that resonated with everyone present. Listening to these accounts, I couldn't help but see parallels with my own life. The double standards, where one person's missteps were celebrated as a sign of passion while the other was condemned for the same transgression, seemed to be a recurring theme. Daniel's role in these stories was intriguing. He was both a charismatic storyteller and a cunning orchestrator, delicately balancing the fine line between truth and manipulation. His presence made it clear that the past, with all its flaws and secrets, had a persistent hold on the present. Throughout the night, the story spilled out in a mixture of hushed tones and fervent debates. Every account, every confession was a revelation, a vivid illustration of how deeply the wounds of betrayal and hypocrisy had scarred this community. The atmosphere was electric with both sorrow and a strange sense of camaraderie, a shared understanding that the rules of society often concealed as much as they revealed. That evening, as I listened intently to the myriad voices recounting their personal truths, I felt my resolve waver. Here, amidst the raw and honest confessions, I began to wonder if my own life had been nothing more than a carefully constructed facade, a delicate balance of secrets and lies. The immersion into these local intrigues not only deepened my curiosity but also set the stage for even more complicated choices ahead. I realized that embracing these revelations might force me to confront uncomfortable realities about the very nature of betrayal and desire, and perhaps even about the person I had become. The night had already deepened when I stepped out onto the quiet streets, the weight of the day's revelations still pressing on my chest. A sudden summer downpour broke the stillness, transforming Sen Harbor into a glistening labyrinth of wet cobblestones and shimmering reflections. The rain was neither gentle nor cruel. It was an unyielding torrent that washed away pretense and invited raw emotion. I wandered aimlessly, seeking solace and clarity beneath the relentless drumming of raindrops. I wasn't expecting to find anyone in the deserted streets that night, yet as I rounded a bend near an old footbridge, I saw him, Daniel, leaning against the slick, time-worn railing. The rain had turned his hair into a dark halo and magnified the intensity in his eyes, making him appear both vulnerable and impossibly alluring. His presence stirred something deep within me, a mixture of longing, defiance, and an acute awareness of the risks we were about to take. Without a word, he stepped forward, closing the distance between us, as if drawn by an invisible magnet. "Laurel," he said softly, his voice blending with the patter of the rain, "sometimes the only way to find truth is to stand in the storm." There was an honesty in his tone that resonated with my own turbulent thoughts, a call to confront the emotions I had long suppressed. In that charged moment, the boundaries of right and wrong blurred into insignificance. The world around us faded, the steady rain, the glistening pavement, even the looming specter of betrayal that had shadowed my recent days. All that remained was an overwhelming urge to embrace the unknown, to acknowledge the forbidden desires that had been simmering beneath the surface. His gaze, earnest and unguarded, invited me to shed the layers of doubt and step into a reality where passion and pain were inseparable. Without a second thought, I closed the gap between us. Our lips met in a kiss that was both tender and fierce, a collision of pent-up emotions and unspoken confessions. The kiss was not merely an act of physical connection. It was a silent promise of escape, a desperate bid to recapture moments of lost intimacy in a life that had become riddled with secrets and betrayals. For those fleeting seconds, I allowed myself to forget the responsibilities that chained me, the guilt that gnawed at my soul, and the looming uncertainty of a fractured marriage. As we pulled away, our foreheads resting together beneath the curtain of rain, the truth of our actions crystallized. The kiss had been a moment of revelation, an awakening that laid bare the complexities of desire and the high stakes of our transgression. In the dim light of the storm, I felt a powerful mix of exhilaration and remorse. A realization that every choice in the tangled tapestry of life carried the potential for both liberation and deep, personal loss. In that moment, standing on the rain-soaked bridge with Daniel, I knew there was no turning back. The intensity of that kiss, the raw vulnerability it unveiled, marked a point of no return. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within, a relentless downpour that cleansed and condemned in equal measure, leaving me trembling on the edge of a truth too profound to ignore. In the wake of that rain-soaked kiss, the world around me seemed to tilt on its axis. Every stolen moment with Daniel became a bittersweet escape, a secret sanctuary where desire battled with guilt. Our clandestine meetings grew more frequent, each encounter weaving a complex tapestry of passion, regret, and internal strife. Every glance, every whisper in the dim light of hidden corners of Sen Harbor, was charged with a silent acknowledgement of the forbidden connection we dared to embrace. I found myself constantly oscillating between two worlds. In the quiet solitude of my new home, echoes of my marital vows and memories of Andrew haunted me. I would lie awake at night, feeling the weight of my betrayal, the guilt gnawing relentlessly at the edges of my conscience. In those quiet hours, every tick of the clock became a reminder that I was slowly unraveling the fabric of my life. The photograph of the mysterious woman still perched on my shelf seemed to reflect the duality of my existence, a silent observer to my inner torment, as if she too had once danced on the razor's edge of desire and duty. Yet, when I was with Daniel, time itself appeared to slow down. In the secret corners of abandoned buildings or during twilight strolls along deserted streets, his presence dissolved the constraints of my troubled mind. His touch was a balm to my restless spirit, a promise of liberation that felt dangerously seductive. But with every embrace, the pain of duplicity sharpened. I was caught in a ceaseless conflict, torn between the warmth of a connection that awakened parts of me long forgotten, and the aching loyalty to a life I once believed in. Our meetings were laden with unspoken questions. Could fleeting moments of passion justify the slow erosion of trust, or were we merely trading one set of lies for another? Daniel, too, bore the marks of our forbidden liaison. His eyes often betrayed flashes of remorse amid the intensity of our shared moments, hinting at the personal cost of the game he was playing. Even as he whispered reassurances that our connection was genuine, the undercurrent of manipulation was never far from the surface. It was as if, in our union, we were both desperately clinging to a dream that might be nothing more than a beautifully tragic illusion. In these turbulent hours, I wrestled with the stark reality of our secret, a secret that carved a deep fissure in my soul. Every tender kiss and every stolen glance deepened the chasm between who I was supposed to be and who I had become. The allure of escape was matched only by the relentless inner torment of knowing that the path I chose might lead to irrevocable loss. And so, as the days turned into a maze of conflicting emotions, I realized that love, when entangled with betrayal, was as fragile as it was all-consuming, a dangerous dance on the edge of oblivion, where every step could be our last. As the days grew longer, the weight of secrets pressed harder against the walls of my fragile existence. I had long since become acquainted with the scars that betrayal left behind, but nothing could have prepared me for the revelations that emerged from a convergence of seemingly disparate threads, a faded photograph and an ominous letter that both echoed with ancestral truths. It began on a seemingly ordinary morning when, while rummaging through an old desk in the attic of my new home, I stumbled upon a bundle of letters tucked away in a hidden compartment. One envelope, in particular, caught my attention. Its cream-colored paper was stained by time, and the handwriting, elegant yet somber, bore a familiar weight of regret. I hesitated before breaking its seal, uncertain if the words within would grant me solace or plunge me further into a labyrinth of past misdeeds. The letter recounted a tale of forbidden love, deep familial betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of redemption. A narrative so raw and intricate that it mirrored the chaotic tapestry of my own recent experiences. Each sentence was imbued with a bitter truth about a long-forgotten scandal, where the sins of previous generations had haunted every subsequent branch of the family tree. I learned that the mysterious woman captured in the old photograph was, in fact, an ancestor whose life had been marred by secrets and heartbreak. Her piercing eyes, as if forever capturing the weight of her own trials, now held a mirror to my soul, urging me to question the legacy of deceit that had been passed down through the ages. The more I read, the more I recognized unsettling parallels between her story and my present-day turmoil. It seemed that every act of betrayal, every whispered confession in the dead of night, was but a chapter in a saga that spanned decades, if not centuries. The letter hinted at a cyclical pattern. Every few decades, the same dark narrative would re-emerge, cloaked in fresh lies and passionate missteps, yet bearing the unmistakable imprint of familial dysfunction. This realization sent a shiver down my spine, as if the past were not content to rest quietly in its grave, but was instead clawing its way back into the light, determined to reclaim its voice. I clutched the photograph and the letter together, feeling their intertwined weight. In that moment, the boundaries between my personal tragedy and the ancient wounds of my bloodline dissolved. It was as though these relics, imbued with memories of long-lost promises and shattered dreams, had been placed in my path deliberately, to compel me to confront not just the immediate betrayals that plagued my marriage and clandestine affair, but also the deep-seated patterns of deception that had haunted my lineage. With trembling resolve, I realized that I could no longer ignore the pull of this legacy. The echoes of the past were now inextricably linked with the present, urging me to unearth the buried truths that might finally offer redemption or, at the very least, an honest reckoning with who I had become. The revelation was both a curse and a potential cure, a chance to break free from a cycle of betrayal, provided I dared to face the ghosts of my heritage head-on. And so, with the letter and photograph as my reluctant guides, I prepared to embark on a journey that promised to be as harrowing as it was liberating, a quest to reclaim my identity from the shadows of history. The tension that had been building in our fractured home finally reached its breaking point one gloomy afternoon. The air inside felt heavy, as if every unspoken word had found its place in the charged silence. I had barely managed to piece together my thoughts when Andrew, his face etched with anger and hurt, stormed into the living room. His eyes were wild, filled with a mix of betrayal, despair, and a sorrow that cut deeper than any physical wound. "Laurel," he began, his voice trembling with a barely contained fury, "how long has this been going on?" The question hung in the air, accusing and raw. I felt my heart pounding, and for a moment, time seemed to stretch, every second filled with the unbearable weight of our mutual deceptions. He paced back and forth, each step resonating like a drumbeat marking the rhythm of our unraveling lives. "I trusted you," he continued, pausing as if searching for words that could encapsulate the devastation of his discovery. "I believed in the vows we made, in the life we built. And now I hear about these secret meetings. About a kiss that was meant to erase everything we once stood for." His voice cracked as the words tumbled out, each one laden with disappointment. I tried to speak, to explain the overwhelming pull of loneliness, the desperate need for something that would make me feel alive again, but the torrent of emotions left me scrambling for coherent sentences. My eyes welled up with tears, not solely from guilt, but from the crushing realization that our relationship had become a battleground of lies and half-truths. Andrew's next words cut through the silence like a knife. "I received a recording, Laurel. Your name, my name, everything laid bare. Was it worth it?" The room felt colder, the distance between us deepening with every syllable. His question was not just about the physical act of betrayal. It was about the emotional chasm that had formed over years of neglect and hidden agendas. I could no longer mask the anguish that had been festering inside me. "I didn't mean for it to be like this," I whispered, voice trembling. I felt trapped in a life that was slowly strangling me, and in Daniel, I found a glimpse of something different. Something real, even if it was wrong. My confession was raw, unedited, and painful. It wasn't a plea for forgiveness. It was an attempt to explain how the quiet decay of our marriage had spiraled into this catastrophic moment. Andrew's eyes, red-rimmed with unshed tears, bore into mine, reflecting the pain of a love betrayed. "Real?" he scoffed bitterly. "Is this what real love feels like now? A series of lies that slowly poison every memory we once cherished." His words reverberated in the stillness, each echo a stark reminder of the life we once knew. A life now shattered by the twin forces of betrayal and regret. In that moment, our home transformed into a battlefield of shattered dreams. The emotional betrayal wasn't just about the infidelity. It was the culmination of every unspoken resentment, every misinterpreted glance, every silent scream of discontent. Our once stable foundation had crumbled under the weight of secrets, leaving us both raw, exposed, and irrevocably changed. In the uneasy calm that followed the storm of our confrontation, a silence fell over our fractured lives, a silence that was soon broken by the unexpected arrival of a secret message. It happened on a dreary morning when I discovered an unmarked envelope tucked away on the kitchen table. Inside was a small, unassuming flash drive, its presence as enigmatic as the unresolved emotions swirling within me. With trembling hands and a mix of dread and anticipation, I connected it to my laptop. The screen flickered to life, and an audio file began to play. A message that would append everything I thought I knew. The voice that emerged was unmistakably Andrew's, yet it carried a raw vulnerability that I had never heard before. In this private confession, he recounted his own series of missteps and deceptions, painting a picture of a man ensnared by his own insecurities and a history of contradictions. He admitted that the letter he had received, the one that had sparked the rift between us, was only part of a larger tapestry of betrayals, a tapestry that stretched back further than either of us cared to acknowledge. Andrew's tone was bitter as he described how the same double standards that now tore our lives apart had long been a fixture in his world. He spoke of a time when his own infidelities were overlooked, when charm and power granted him leniency, while the mistakes of others were met with harsh judgment and scorn. As I listened, a mix of emotions surged within me: anger, sorrow, and a grim sort of understanding. The audio confession revealed that the injustice of double standards wasn't unique to our situation. It was woven into the fabric of Sen Harbor itself. Andrew's voice trembled as he confessed that he had once admired the community's code of honor, only to see it crumble under the weight of hypocrisy. He recalled secret gatherings of influential locals who celebrated their indiscretions, their whispered scandals concealed behind polite smiles and selective amnesia. His words hinted at a systematic rot, where loyalty was measured not by sincerity but by the power to manipulate perception. The revelation struck me like a lightning bolt. Here was my husband, admitting his own failings, yet also exposing a broader corrosive culture that had shaped our lives. The message was a damning indictment of a society that permitted betrayal to flourish while forcing those like me to bear the consequences in silence. It made me realize that the painful choices I'd made, the secret meetings with Daniel, and my desperate search for meaning were all part of a larger narrative of broken promises and unbalanced scales. In that quiet moment, as Andrew's voice faded into the static of the recording, I felt both a deep sorrow and a flicker of liberation. The secret message had shattered any remaining illusions I held about our past, forcing me to confront not only my personal betrayals but also the enduring systemic double standards that had haunted Sen Harbor for decades. It was a turning point, a call to action to unmask the hypocrisy that had long been hidden in plain sight and to seek a truth that was both painful and necessary. In the days that followed the damning audio confession, a new chill settled over my world, one that carried the scent of deception I hadn't yet anticipated. It was as if the truth had taken on a double edge, slicing away any remnants of hope and leaving behind nothing but raw, bitter disillusionment. I began to notice subtle cracks in the flawless veneer Daniel had so carefully maintained. His charming smile, the playful glints in his eyes, even his confident assurances, all now felt like intricate masks designed to conceal a darker reality. One overcast afternoon, I attended a clandestine meeting of the historians of the streets. Daniel was there again, commanding the conversation with a persuasive ease that once left me in awe. However, during an offhand exchange between two older members, whispered complaints about manipulated narratives and skewed accounts of local scandals, I caught fragments of a conversation that sent a chill through my spine. The words spoke of someone who had twisted the truth, bending the stories to serve his own ambitions, to tighten his grip over a community already steeped in secrets. The details were vague, yet the undertone was unmistakable. Daniel had been orchestrating more than just a secret liaison. He had been playing both sides, using our shared vulnerabilities as currency for power. That evening, when I finally confronted him in the solitude of my dimly lit study, the atmosphere was heavy with unspoken accusations. "Daniel," I began quietly, the tremor in my voice betraying my inner turmoil. "I heard things, whispers that you've been manipulating events, bending the truth to keep control. What is it you really want from all of this?" His reaction was immediate, his charming mask faltering for a split second as he searched my eyes for signs of weakness or betrayal. He tried to deflect with a laugh, a hollow sound that now resonated as a bitter echo of deceit. "Laurel, you're reading too much into things," he said, but the dismissive tone only deepened the fissure between us. The more I pressed, the more his carefully constructed narrative began to crumble. I recalled every moment of our clandestine meetings, every seemingly passionate whisper in the dark, and now it all reeked of calculated manipulation, a game where my feelings were merely pawns. In the silence that followed, the weight of his duplicity hit me like a tidal wave. The man who had once seemed to offer a refuge for my crumbling world was not the beacon of redemption I'd imagined, but rather another architect of betrayal. My heart sank as I realized that the passionate connection I had so desperately clung to was built on lies. The illusion of escape, the promise of a life free from the chains of my past, was nothing more than a cruel mirage, designed to keep me entangled in a cycle of deceit. That night, as I sat alone with the truth echoing in my mind, I felt the profound sting of betrayal in its most unexpected form. Daniel's duplicity had not only shattered my trust but had also left me questioning the very nature of desire and loyalty. The vibrant hues of hope that had once colored my secret escapades faded into a monochrome of regret and disillusionment. In that moment, the bitter realization took hold. The path I'd chosen was paved with false promises, and the illusions I had nurtured were nothing but a fragile, deceptive veil, now irrevocably torn apart by the harsh light of reality.